What's shaking, guys? MagicActivatr here, coach of your Memphis Drizzlies, and I am excited to bring you guys a breakdown / analysis video for our IBL Season 1 team. That's right, we had the live draft this past Saturday, and so we've got our full roster for the Memphis Drizzlies this season, and I'm very, very excited about this team. So I want to do this video to kind of break down and talk about the mons that I picked and why I picked them, and things like that. So remember that if you do enjoy this video, to hit that like button down below for us, give it your magic touch, because your support is greatly appreciated. Show some love for your Memphis Drizzlies this season. But anyway, if you're interested in how the actual draft breaks down, the rules on how it works and all that stuff, you can go down in the description. There will be a link to the IBL Hub where you can go and actually read the rules for not only the draft, but also how battles will take place and how they work and all of that good stuff. So anyway, with that being said, going into this draft, we had the 9th pick overall because the draft order was randomized before the draft started, and it takes place in a snake style format. So it starts with whoever gets first pick, it goes all the way down to 12th pick, and then in round 2 it starts at 12 and works its way back to 1. So it continues to alternate back and forth in this fashion until the draft is complete. So we had the 9th draft overall, like I said, so we were kind of mid to late during the first round, which was not the most ideal place. I would have rather probably been closer to the beginning or end of the draft, but it ended up working out for us in the long run, and so I'm not going to complain about it. It wasn't a terrible position, so everything ended up working out nicely for us in the end. So it was probably for the best that we were here. So anyway, with that being said, going into the draft, I had a very, very loose plan about what I wanted to do. I knew the kind of team that I wanted to draft, kind of what roles I wanted to fill and things like that. And that's really how I planned my team. Rather than, picking specific mons that I wanted to get, I would kind of look at, I want something to fill this role, and I would have, several Pokemon that kind of fit that bill. Of course, I had Pokemon that were kind of top priority, that if I could get them, I wanted to get them, but I didn't want to be so set on those particular Pokemon that if it got sniped or something like that, that it was gonna hurt me too heavily. I always had kind of a backup plan in mind. So with that in mind, most of the things that I had planned were for the early part of the draft. So I knew that I wanted to pick some things that I had some past experience with, so I would feel comfortable using them, so that whenever I picked up some newer things, I could be a little bit more creative and use things that I hadn't used before, and be able to use them with confidence because I had, these other mons around them that I felt familiar with and comfortable with using. So that was the game plan. And so going into the first round, there were a couple of mons in mind that I really, really wanted. One in particular that I was really, really wanting, and I knew that if it got to me, I was likely going to pick it. But then there was another Pokemon that I really wanted that I was honestly really expecting someone to pick it up before I had a chance to get it. And both of these were mons that I had used in the past, so I knew that they were going to really, really work well for me if I could use them properly and get them in. I honestly didn't expect there was any way that I would ever get both of them together, so I knew I had to kind of like figure out what was the priority and what the game plan was with that. And so it got all the way down to my pick, and to my surprise, one of the mons that I really expected to get scooped up was still available. And so even though I wanted the other mon a little bit more, I got to thinking about it, and I was like, all right, if I were to pick the Pokemon that I want the most right now, there's a very good chance that between the next 6 picks before it gets back to me, that the other one will get scooped up. So if I were to pick the one that I wanted a little bit less, then if it got through those 6 rounds, the other one was less likely to have gotten scooped up. And so it was kind of a risky thing to do, to go ahead and pick the one that I wanted least of the two first. But I decided to do it and risk losing the other one because it seemed like it made the most sense at the time. And so for the first round pick, I went ahead and scooped up Mega Venusaur. And Mega Venusaur is a Pokemon that I've had plenty of experience with. I've used it on both of my past IBL teams before the IBL got rebooted for this season, and Mega Venusaur just always puts in the work. It's one of the top megas in my opinion in the draft league format. It works really well. It's a super defensive mon, which is what I like. I tend to play a little bit more defensively in counter team, and Mega Venusaur is just one of those mons that I've used enough that I feel confident in it. It's a great mon. It can tank hits really well. It's got thick fat, so basically it eliminates two of the main weaknesses that it has in fire and ice, and leaves it with only 2 weaknesses essentially. And that's something that's very valuable. When you can pick a mon that has very few weaknesses, it's very, in my opinion, very useful in this kind of format of competitive play. So Mega Venusaur fit that really well, and like I said, Venusaur is a great defensive mon. He's got a lot of ways to keep his health up with Giga Drain, Leech Seed, Synthesis. He can do stuff to support the team like Sleep Powder. Of course, he gets Stab, Sludge Bomb, which is something that's very nice to have in a league where, you know, fairy types are very valuable to people, and a lot of people are trying to scoop up fairies. So I knew that fairies were also going to be kind of harder to scoop up this time around, because 2 of them actually got banned during the banning process before the draft started, because each player gets to ban 1 mon, and like 2 of the best fairy types got banned right out of the gate. So fairy types were going to be very sought after and fought for. So I knew having a poison type that could kind of deal with some of those would be a really nice thing to have. And of course, Mega Venusaur does all that. Not to mention, there's some other things that Mega Venusaur can do. It can roar to phase things and stuff like that. So very good, solid defensive mon that can switch in on a lot of stuff and tank a lot of hits. So really happy to scoop that up. Now, so after we picked Summer Breeze, we had to wait 6 rounds before we could get to our next pick, and I was honestly kind of sweating it out, because I really wanted this other mon. It was my top priority mon that I really wanted to get, even more so than Mega Venusaur. And I was so nervous that I wasn't going to get it, and I was going to have to go with one of my alternate picks. And like I said, I had backups in case that one fell through, but I'm sweating it through, and it gets to me, and no one has picked it, and I get so hyped. And like super fast, I go ahead and tell him, like, I already know I want Milotic. So we went ahead and scooped up Bellerive the Milotic, and man, Milotic I used on one of my previous IBL teams. I believe it was the preseason, and Milotic is just such a great defensive Pokemon, and a lot of people tend to draft more offensive Pokemon from the start, it seems like, but for me, whenever you can scoop up some of the best defensive mons early on, why not go ahead and do it, especially when it fits my play style. So I went ahead and scooped up Milotic. Milotic is a great bulky water. I love having bulky waters, period, and in my opinion, Milotic is one that does the job super well. Unlike some of the other ones, it does really well because it's not kind of forced into the same move sets every week. It has a little bit more utility than some of them, not to mention 2 of the 2 really good abilities in Marvel Scale and Competitive, both of which are very usable abilities in this format. And you can kind of, you know, since you can change abilities each week, you can pick whichever one you want based on the situation. So Milotic works really well. Of course, it gets Scald, which is one of my favorite moves in the game, Ice Beam. It can Toxic Recover, all of the standard stuff. Not to mention it has Dragon Tail for phasing, so if mons try to set up to take it out, you can phase them out that way. It's also got a lot of hidden gem moves that I think can be utilized in the right situations. Maybe a little bit more cheeky, but like I said, a bit more utility than some of the other bulky waters, in my opinion. And so I think Milotic's going to be able to put in a lot of work for me this season. And not to mention, it meshes really well with Mega Venusaur. So anything that gives Milotic problems can switch in. I can switch in Mega Venusaur, and it pretty much resists all of its weaknesses. So very nice with that. And not to mention, I've already got 2 parts of a very strong Water, Fire, Grass core going for me, so that worked out really well. So now we got to wait several more picks before it gets back to us for round 3. And I knew that I wanted to go ahead and kind of fill out that 3-part core that I was going for. And I had several fire types in mind. One of which being Entei, which was gone like round 1, which really didn't surprise me at all. But really, even more than Entei, there was another fire type that I wanted and was hoping to get. And it was one that I haven't really used before and was excited to try out. And so I was honestly expecting this one to get scooped up as well because of I know some of the other guys in the league, and there was one in particular that I was specifically thinking might try and scoop this up before I got a chance to. But it makes it all the way back down to me, and this mon is still available, and I was like, oh, this is going to be perfect. So I went ahead and scooped up Arcanine. Our girl Ty Lee, the Arcanine, is here. I'm very, very excited about this pick. Now, I haven't used Arcanine very much in the past, but Arcanine is really, really cool because it is a fire type that actually is kind of bulky. It's similar to Ninetales in a lot of ways, because Ninetales has a great special defense stat, but then it also has pretty solid speed and special offensive ability. Arcanine, on the other hand, is a bit more physically defensive thanks to Intimidate. It has some really nice natural bulk. Not to mention, one of the things that I really like about this Pokemon is that it has the ability to be used physically or specially in terms of offense, which is really, really cool. I mean, there's only 10 points difference between its physical and special offense, and that's really, really a nice thing to have, a little bit of utility, because it's similar to Mega Venusaur. I've used Mega Venusaur physically in the past, and so the ability to kind of switch those back and forth between special and physical is kind of nice to have, especially in defensive mons like that. And that's the great thing about Arcanine, is because normally I don't like using physical fire types other than maybe like Entei because Sacred Fire, but the best physical fire type move is normally, Flare Blitz, which is going to do recoil damage, and I'm not a fan of moves that do a lot of recoil damage unless I have a way to get that health back. And that's one of the great things about Arcanine, is that he does get Morning Sun. So Arcanine does have a form of health recovery, which is really nice. So now I have 3 mons that not only are really good defensively, but have decent offensive capabilities as well. And they all have forms of recovery, which is really, really nice. So at this point, I've honestly got my top 3 priority picks that I wanted for this draft in my pocket. So at this point, I'm like, the draft couldn't be going better for me. And at this point, I'm thinking, now it's just a matter of kind of filling in the rest of these roles. And with this solid core that I feel like we've drafted, it should be a pretty good draft for us here on out, no matter what happens. So that being said, it gets back to us for round 4. And at this point, I know that I want something that's going to be a little bit faster, because right now I've got a lot of bulk on my team. And Arcanine is actually surprisingly fast at 95. I think it's kind of slept on for that reason, because usually you think about fast mons being 100 or more, but 95 is really not that bad. But I knew I did want something that could outspeed a lot of things. And I typically try and draft stuff that's around that 110, 115 base speed. But on the occasion that I draft some of that stuff, I also want to draft something that's a little bit faster. 115 at the least being my fastest mon, but I really like to have something a little bit even faster that can hit fairly decent if I can. And so I was thinking about mons, what kind of getting that speed in there really, really quickly, and like what mon would be great to have that fast. And a mon that came to mind was one that I'd used before, because I really wanted an electric type, and fast electric types are very, very good because of Volt Switch and things like that. And so I went ahead and scooped up Glitch, our Jolteon. So Glitch, our Jolteon, is back, sitting back here behind me on the thing actually, but I love Jolteon. Jolteon is super fast, one of the fastest mons in the game. One of the fastest mons picked up in the draft. 130 base speed. Not a whole lot of things that other people picked up are going to be outspeeding that unless they try and scarf it. So that's really nice. Jolteon's got 2 really great abilities. Volt Absorb, which gives it basically an immunity to electricity. So at this point I don't even have to have a ground type if I really don't want to. But we got that Volt Absorb, and then we got Quick Feet, and Quick Feet is a great ability as well. If it gets status, it's gonna increase its speed, essentially giving it a choice scarf without being locked into a move. And so it's kind of one of those things where we've got a lot of we got several mons now that can act as status absorbers with both Milotic and with Jolteon and his Quick Feet. Like, they actually benefit from getting status, so that's a really good thing. Not to mention Jolteon can Volt Switch, like I said. It's got fairly decent coverage moves. You know, you can run HP Ice, you can run Shadow Ball, Signal Beam, whatever. But it also, you know, you also have the ability to Baton Pass with it, set up agility. You can get really fast Thunder Waves off, which can benefit the entire team. So Jolteon is a great mon. I've used it before, like I said, and I really, really like it. So having that really, really fast mon in there that can't get paralyzed even is really, really nice. The immunity to paralysis on a fast mon is super, super valuable. So really, really like that. But we scooped up Jolteon, and then we waited around for round 5, and it gets back to us. And at this point, I'm kind of thinking about one of the concerns is that I'm seeing several people pick up, you know, hazard setters and hazard removers and stuff like that. And I know I don't have any of that yet. And so I was kind of thinking about, like, I still need some speed. I need something that's going to be fast. A lot of good rapid spinners have already got picked up. Excadrill got picked up. But I want something that can be offensive. I want something that got speed and something that can help me kind of control hazards. And my philosophy is if you can't set up hazards and you can't remove hazards, why not bounce them back? So I mean, you guys should have known I was going to have to pick this thing if it was available. I went ahead and scooped up Amethyst the Espeon. That is right. We've got Espeon on the team once again. We just scooped up her brother Glitch, so why not scoop her up as well from the same tier. I love Espeon. Magic Bounce is one of my favorite abilities in the game. The ability to bounce back any, not only hazards, but any statusing move used on Espeon can be bounced back. So, I mean, this thing can't even be taunted. It's really, really crazy. I mean, and I love, I think Espeon is incredibly underrated. I think it's got more versatility than people give it credit for. It's got a lot of different moves. Support-wise, even though its stats don't really make it a great support Pokemon, it has the capability of doing that stuff. It can set up screens. It can Wish Pass if it needs to. Not to mention, offensively, it's really, really solid. It's got a 130 special attack stat, which is crazy. It's basically just the special attack and the speed stat are reversed on Espeon and Jolteon, and I love that. So Espeon can hit really, really hard. It's got solid coverage moves and everything like that. So it does really, really well. And I know that it does have more versatility than people give it credit for. And Espeon has always put in work for me whenever I've used it. Not to mention, it's my favorite Pokemon. So, you know, you can't go wrong with that anyway. But really excited to have Espeon back on the team. And at this point, I've gotten 4 Pokemon that I've used in the past. So I'm feeling very, very confident going forward. So that being said, we're moving forward, and I'm like, all right, I still haven't drafted a ground type. I know I have Volt Absorb, but a ground type would be really, really nice to have, not to mention something that could maybe get some hazards up for us. And so I'm thinking about it, and I realize, I haven't picked my tier A yet. Like, I've still not, we're like 6 rounds deep, and I've yet to pick up a tier A mon. So I look up at tier A, and I'm like, well, what ground types are still available up here? Excadrill's already gone, which is one of the ones I would have liked to have had because of the ability to remove hazards and set them up, but it was gone in round 1, I believe. So I wasn't really too upset about that, but I was looking and I noticed there was a mon there that I've seen put in a lot of work, and I've never really used it competitively before. The only time I think I've ever used this mon is actually in like in-game and like LPs and stuff like that. And so I was like, you know what? This thing is in tier A for a reason. It's got to be pretty good. So I went ahead and scooped up Hippowdon, and like I said, as far as my personal experience, I haven't used Hippowdon a lot, but I do know that it is considered to be one of the best mixed walls in the OU tier in Standard Smogon, so I'm sure that that's going to apply here as well. It gets Sand Stream, which gets sand up, which does residual damage on opponents, which is kind of a nice thing to have. Not to mention it's got a pretty solid attack stat, so it's getting off some pretty hard hitting Earthquakes. It gets Crunch, gets Ice Fang, I believe, so a couple of different coverage moves that are really, really nice. Not to mention Slack Off, so this thing can sit here and recover health as well. Another defensive mon I'm picking up, but like I said, I like defensive play style, so it works out pretty well. It gets Whirlwind as well, so this thing can phase out. Not to mention, like I said, it can get Stealth Rock. So this thing really, really seemed to give me a lot of things that I was kind of wanting to get, plus more. So I've never used this mon before, so I was excited to use it and get a little experimental with it and try and use it and see if I could maybe use it in ways that it hasn't been used previously, or has been used less so in other leagues and stuff like that. So anyway, Hippowdon is here. Crush, shout out to the Platinum randomizer, but Hippowdon is here. I'm excited to try it out. It'll be really, really cool. So with that being said, I knew that I needed, I still didn't have anything that was immune to ground types. So at this point, I'm like, okay, what can I do? What levitate users are available? What kind of stuff can I get? And I realized that at this point, I've only used 100 of my free points, and so I'm thinking, okay, what's around that I could scoop up? And there was a mon that I've used again previously in a league, but it popped into my mind, and I was like, yo, this mon would be absolutely great to have because it does a job that I really, really like. And that Pokemon is none other than Staraptor. Top Gun is back. I'm excited about this one because I love Staraptor. Staraptor is really good. It's got a solid, it's a really good offensive Pokemon. It's got 100 base speed. So again, kind of giving me a little bit more speed since I lacked that in the first few rounds of picks. 100 is nothing to sleep on. Not to mention, he makes a great choice scarfer because of U-Turn, which is one of the moves that he gets. And I love U-Turn. I love pivot moves, especially on mons like Staraptor, because Staraptor also gets Intimidate, and Intimidate U-Turn is one of my favorite things to utilize because you come in, you Intimidate, get that stat drop, and then you can switch out immediately. So if you want to Scarf this thing, if you want to ban this thing, you can get off a lot of damage and do that. Not to mention this thing can use Defog. I've used this thing as a defogger before. A lot of people wouldn't do that, but I've done it. And I currently didn't have a way to remove hazards, so I figured, you know what? If I've got something that can defog, that works out for me. And like I said, Staraptor is just great offensively anyway. It gets Brave Bird, of course, stab Brave Bird, stab Double Edge. Plus, it gets Close Combat, which is really, really unique for a flying normal type. So really, really, really excited to get Staraptor back on the team. I used a few of my points for that one, but it ended up working out for me pretty well. Now, with that being said, it goes back around, and I'm like, all right, I still need some of these other requirements to get filled. And I realized, okay, we haven't picked a tier D Pokemon yet, and at this point, like, I don't really know what I want from tier D, and so this may be one of the decisions that I rushed into a little bit more. But since it was there and it was a mon that I personally like to use, I went ahead and scooped it up anyway, and that was Layers, the Crustle. So we scooped up Crustle, and I like Crustle. I think he's one of the best, in my opinion, one of the best hazard setters in the game because he's almost always guaranteed to get up at least two layers of hazards, whether that be 2 layers of spikes or rocks plus spikes, and that's really, really a nice thing to have. I normally don't have any kind of like hazard setter except for rocks, so having the ability to also set down spikes if I want to and stack those is really, really cool. Not to mention, I like Crustle. He's pretty defensive, and for a bug type, he's got nice typing. He's got 3 weaknesses that are kind of a lot of people are not as aware of what those weaknesses are. I'm sure in this format they'll be researching and know what they are, but overall Crustal's got a really unique typing. I like Rocket Bug as a typing, period. Not to mention this thing is a shell smasher, so it can shell smash, and it gets knockoff, the ability to knock things off, which is something I think is super valuable in any type of competitive format because items are so useful. So I like Crustal a lot. He's got some utility with him, and I've used Crustal in different ways before, some kind of unique spread, EV spreads and stuff. So I know what he can do if used in the right situation. So like I said, this was one of the mons that I picked up, less so because I felt like I needed it, and more so just because I liked it and I knew it was there and it would fill one of my roles. But maybe my most regretful pick, if I had to say there is one that I regret, but overall I really like this mon, and not even mad about having it as an option. So with that being said, we're now on the 9th pick, and it comes around to me, and I had this realization, I had this epiphany moment where I was looking around and I realized that this mon was still available, and I was like, wait, why is this thing still here? Why has nobody picked this thing yet? And it was in the process of looking at, kind of managing how many free points I had left and stuff, and I realized he was in a tier that I could scoop him up, and I was like, yo, dude, this mon is a great wall breaker. Not to mention it's got some other things. It would give me some more priority, which right now I believe I only really had an Arcanine with extreme speed and Star Raptor with quick attack. So this would give me some more priority for the team, which is something I usually don't think about till later in team building, when it's kind of late in the process. But I was like, this thing is available. Why is it available? If it makes it back to me, I think I have to get this thing. And so I'm sweating it out, and it gets back to me, and nobody picks it. So I'm like, dude, I'm gonna take this thing, and that is Waddles the Mamoswine. That's right. I scooped up Mamoswine, which I was blown away to see Mamoswine not go until round 9. Like, why was this thing still here? But it worked out that I still had enough free points to pick it up. I would just have to pick some lower tier stuff to balance that out, but I was okay with that. And yo, Mamoswine was here. Mamoswine is a great, like I said, a great wall breaker. He can set up Stealth Rocks as well. Plus, he's one of the, he gave me an ice type Pokemon without giving me like a mon that's going to be very frail. Mamoswine is one of the few ice types that seem to actually live for a while, and I really like that. It gives me a second ground type option if I want to go with something a little bit more offensive than Hippowdon, which is really great. Honestly, if I'd have realized back then, I might have even picked this over Hippowdon, but the fact that it's there, it was something that wasn't even on my radar until I just noticed it was available. But like I said, very powerful Earthquakes, very powerful stab ice type moves. I believe the only really other decent ice type user that I had was Milotic, and so it just worked out. I really like Mamoswine for its stab ice type moves. It gets Ice Shard too, which is, like I said, powerful priority, and it's another option for setting up Stealth Rocks. So now I'm really starting to get options with what I can do with my team, which I really like. And Mamoswine makes a great, Life Orb user for wall breaker. You can scarf it if you want. Really solid monitor. So I'm really happy with that pickup, and it was kind of one of those pickups that I never really even thought about getting, but it ended up that it was available to me, so I did get that. So now we're down to our last 2 picks, and at this point, one thing that I knew that I really wanted to get that I still have not picked up yet was a Steel type. And I knew I wanted a Steel type because I do have Mega Venusaur, and Mega Venusaur is weak to both Psychic and Flying, and I knew a Steel type would balance that out. And so I'm kind of like trying to figure out like what kind of Steel types are available to me. And I also realized that I had not picked up a Fairy type, which wasn't a top priority, but I knew that it was something that I really needed, and most of the good fairy types were already gone. We were down to like the very bottom of the list fairy types, and so I'm like scooping around, like looking around, and I realized that this Pokemon is here, and it's one that I've never used ever, I think, but it had both of those typings. It worked really, really well for me, and so I went ahead and just scooped up Mawile from Tier E. It filled my Tier E requirement, and I was like, yo, this thing is really, really could be really, really nice to have. Now, I know that its stats are not the greatest, but one of the things that I like about it is another Intimidate user, and when I was looking at it, I was like, the mon that this really reminds me of is Gramble, and Gramble is a fairy type that I've used in the past that its special defense stat is really, really terrible, and its regular defense is, you know, it's all right, but with the Intimidate, it makes it very, very usable. And with Mawile and the resistances that it has, I was like, this thing could actually really, really be nice. Not to mention it gets Sucker Punch, Play Rough, nice and physical fairy type, which is a little less common, and yeah, I just thought this thing really made sense to fill in some of those last minute kind of gaps that we had on the team. And since it was Tier E, it wasn't going to cost me any points, and I figured, like I said, that's why I drafted so many mons that I've used before, so I could try some stuff that have no experience with. And Mawile fit that bill for something I'd never used before, but seemed to kind of fill in some of the holes on my team. So we're gonna try it out and see how it works. But we got Eno the Mawile ready to go. Now we're down to the last pick, and at this point, there's still one typing that I have not scooped up that I really, really wanted to. And it's kind of a funny story because during the banning process, I had banned Hariyama, more or less as a joke, just because everybody knows that I don't like Hariyama that much. And I knew I most likely wasn't going to draft it, so I was like, I'll just ban it, because why not? And there wasn't really anything else that I particularly wanted to ban. Well, now we're down to my last pick. I've got, I believe, 60 points left to spend on my free points, and I need a fighting type. And I'm looking at what fighting types are available, and I'm like, man, there's nothing here that I really, really want. And then I see Hariyama is there, and I'm like, dude, I actually could have picked up Hariyama if I hadn't have banned it. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, for a second, I'm almost regretting actually banning Hariyama. And then, all of a sudden, a shining light in Tier D popped out to me, one that I completely forgot was still available, and that I haven't used a whole lot before. I've only used it a few times, but I know that this thing is a really, really solid Pokemon. And that Pokemon is Scrafty. So for my last pick, which is pretty awesome last pick, in my opinion, I scooped up Scrafty, aka Too Much Hood, and he is here, a Dark and Fighting type, which were two types I did not have on the team. He's a knockoff user. He gets Fake Out, and he's not a very fast mon, but he's got good defenses that allow him to stick around and deal out a lot of damage. Not to mention he gets Drain Punch, High Jump Kick, things like that. And I really wanted a fighting type, like I said, because they can switch in fairly easily on rocks without being too worried about it. The 4x weakness to fairy is something to keep in mind, but it's not that big of an issue with some of the other mons that I've drafted. So I really like Scrafty. Scrafty's a really cool Pokemon. I'm excited to use it, and I know it's gonna probably put in a lot of work. I've already got sets in mind that I could use with this thing, and so I'm excited to see this thing. My boy Scrafty coming through, so I didn't have to regret that Hariyama band. But anyway, that rounds out our team for the IBL Season 1. And I'm very, very excited about this team. One of the things that I'm really excited about when I'm looking at this team is the fact that every mon provides some kind of unique typing. The only repeated typing that I have is 2 ground types, if I'm not mistaken, with Hippowdon and Mamoswine. But other than that, every other typing is unique to the team, which is really, really cool and something that I've never managed to do in the past when I've drafted. And so I was really, really pleased with that. And like I said, I'm very excited with this team. I feel like it's very well rounded. I think definitely the early picks, getting the things that I really wanted, allowed me to really have some freedom in those later slots. And like I said, a lot of things here that I've used before, but I don't think that's a bad thing. You can kind of be bummed about that. But some of these mons I've used before. Some of the ones I used in the season 1 of the IBL that ended up falling through, I didn't get to use a whole lot. So I'm excited to have some of them back to try and use them again. But anyway, that is your lineup for the Memphis Drizzlies this season. Go ahead, guys. I'd like to hear your thoughts. What do you think of this team for this season? How is it looking for you guys? If you got any ideas, set suggestions, things like that we might be able to use on some of these mons throughout the season, I'd love to hear about it. Be sure to go check out some of the other coaches' channels. I know that they're doing draft analysis as well. But this is our team. I'm excited about it. The Memphis Drizzlies are going to make it rain this season. It's going to be awesome. Or maybe make it sand, because we do have to pout on. But anyway, I'm excited about this team. I hope you are too. And I'm really ready for our first week of battles. So I hope you did enjoy this video as always. But for now, guys, I'm going to make it like an Abra and get out of here. So have yourselves a good day, stay cool, and we will catch you next time.